Welcome to the Coach Style Podcast, where I like to talk to athletes, trainers, and coaches for some of the advice, some of the trials, some of the tribulations, but also some of the successes and some of the things that they did to help them achieve their goals. Hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Coach Style Podcast. Today I'm joined by Cameron Ginger, Mr. Propel Hitting himself. How you doing, man?
I'm good, bro. How are you, man?
I'm good. So I got a little research on you, and especially your coaching history, which if you guys don't know, he has been very, very, very busy for the past 2 decades. This is just going to be the baseball side, and then I'll sprinkle in some of the other because you've done some amazing stuff. Uh, so from 2006 to 2007, you actually worked as a coach and college placement specialist. You've helped over 150 guys get into college, and 15 of those guys have actually gone to the MLB. In 2010 to 2012, you started off as a JV coach for Pentago Christian Academy. 2013, you joined DBAT as a pro baseball instructor, and you also directed all their camps.
Mhm.
And you also did a lot of marketing and media. Again, it's so overwhelming. August 2013 to 2015, you taught, also coached at Joshua High School. You were the assistant general manager and the program director for Texas DBAT. You also worked with the Stingrays Baseball Club organization as a director of recruiting and media management. In 2017 to 2018, you also were assistant coach at Paris Junior College. And I saved this one. It's a little bit out of order, but 2015 to present, you started Propel Hitting. Um, Blew up on social media. Just on Instagram alone, you have over 64,000 followers. And you also developed Propel ID, which conveniently you wore that shirt, which is awesome. Um, the one thing, because this took me a hot second to research, because it wasn't as simple as going to your baseball reference page.
Mhm.
Through all of these endeavors, and again, that was just the baseball side. You've also done tons of consulting, program managing, logistics, advertising and media, coaching on the corporate side, client
Mhm.
acquisition, new employee training, mentorship, contracts, negotiations on those contracts, communicating and setting up meetings with CEOs, all the way to being a high school ministry mentor. All over the place. Just you've done everything. The one thing I did
Yep.
find in common though is that you help people, and you do that through
Mhm.
amazing communication, which I think is why Propel ID is so successful. You help them progress. You help make those people make better decisions, and you help them figure out better ways to learn, and you just make those around you better, just in general.
Mhm.
I mean, you've done it all. You've done it all. And I think it led to this great thing, and I'm just
Yeah.
thankful to be in the same industry as Propel ID because I think this is the next generation about it. Do you want to talk about
Mhm.
Propel?
Yeah, man. So I thank you for all that, man. It's
Mhm.
it's always as you look back and um so many times in those seasons or those times of life you're not thinking about what it's going to look like or anything like that, and it's always kind of overwhelming in a good way to kind of look back and like, oh man, like we have done a lot of crazy stuff. I tell my wife all the time I've drug her all around and we've done all these crazy things, and I was like, you're the real reason that that this has happened and all that stuff because I've we've jumped and taken a lot of risk and done a lot of things, and so yeah, man, it's I've done a lot of stuff, and as you said, I think you hit it right on the head. Like it's all been centered around people and getting the best performance out of people and connecting with people and all those kinds of stuff, right? I think that translates everywhere. And that's how, when I talk about baseball, that's why I bring in such a different lens with it because one, I look at the person so deeply and so intimately differently than a lot of people do. However, like, then you combine that with all the other different things. I don't just have a baseball lens. I've
Right.
got, you know, the multi-million dollar lens, the nonprofit, we're barely making it lens, all these different things that go with that, right? And so I think like I've always had baseball that's there, whether it was, my playing career that kind of like um was what it was and wished it was more. And that actually kind of led me into the coaching and then led me into this and led me into more things. And, it kind of started there, right? And I just have had such a passion for that. And I think like the the successes that I didn't have or that I wanted to have or didn't achieve, I believe actually have made me stick around baseball longer in a
Mhm.
sense. I think so. I've got a pretty good buddy. His name's Corey Aldridge, and he played pro ball for 15 years, 17 years, something like that, a long time, and like 5 different continents, got a lot of really cool experience with it. And he said, I think the reason he's like a very he's a very good mix between the old school and the new school, and he's just no BS. That's what he calls himself, and he's 100% true with that. And like he said, I think the reason that the like people that didn't play as long or people that didn't have as much of a career are better to teach people, and this is him saying it, not me, right? Don't shoot the messenger. That I believe the reason they're better is because they actually care more. We had our fill. We got what baseball had to give to us. And we're kind of like moved on from it. We've moved on to the next step. We've moved on to whatever it is. And I think that's why it's so rare you get someone like our buddy, like John Huizinga, right? That like played, but then also wanted to come back and do the
Right.
other. And I think like if you know, like you listen to John's story or your story or my story, it's really like I want the people to have what I didn't have. I want people to be able to experience the fullness of baseball. And if you want to be done, be done, right? And so I think that's really where my passion is. You know, I watch myself like look for answers throughout my playing career, and there was none. Right? I'm not old,
Right.
but like I'm only 35, right? But it's like there wasn't anything. There was
Right.
nothing there. It was
Right.
what you your feedback was not even a phone, right? Because
No.
like kind of, but it was like it was feel T and the net. That's
Yeah.
that's what it was. And so I think like like then I started on my journey and it was like, okay, like, well, if everybody just had the same information, oh, I got all this new information, now I'll just give it to people. And that didn't work either. Right.
Right.
And that helped, but then it kind of swung it to the other side. And so that's really where like I've just always been on this baseball journey to where it's like baseball has so much to give. It teaches you, it can make you into an absolute just ruthless, awesome person in a good way going forward. And so if we're going to experience that, we're going to have the longevity of it. There are certain things that you need. There are certain things that you need to develop and you need to get better at. And so that's where I was like, hey man, like let's bring this together and let's just allow something that's no strings to be there for people to just make an impact. That hey, let's conversate, let's disagree, let's throw out, get the foot down early, let's throw out all these things that don't make sense and they confuse people. Because man, I've been one of those people
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
confused. You know, my brother was I talk a lot about like making the connection, the translating piece. My brother struggled with that, right? So like I want those, I want to help those people. And then my dad just wanted to help us, but he didn't know how. He didn't know who to trust. And
Right.
some of the times he trusted the wrong people, but it wasn't his fault. He's just doing the best he could, right? And so
Right.
I want to be those three things for the baseball world. And I think the baseball world and players deserve better than they get handed. And
Yeah.
that's really where like Propel ID came from is like 3 years ago. It was during COVID when everybody was afraid of the air and everything and all and doing we didn't know what to do with anything, right? We didn't know what to
Right.
do with anything. And so like I remember sitting and just talking to I have two younger brothers and talking to them and my dad and was like, man, like I don't know where my place is, right? Because I've run a facility, I've owned an organization, I've
Right.
coached here and coached this and done this, and I've done all of it, right? And it's not, to me, it doesn't get the root cause, which is players hit a ceiling because the authority figures above them or that are in charge of them put the ceiling on, tighten it, and don't let anybody be able to loosen it, right? And so
Right.
like I was like, how do I impact that? How do I help that? And so like that's really where we kind of just developed this program where it's like, hey, like let's breed self awareness for everybody, for coaches, players, parents. Let's breed self awareness so we can actually do development because I think that's where development falls so much is there's not honesty. There's not people don't want to call a spade, whether it's positive or negative. I think people are better at calling a spade a negative, but you got to call a positive
Right.
a spade too. And I think like there's a lot of disillusionment. There's a lot of things, and so like it's really just a system that's based on how you think, how you process, how you solve problems, and how that shows up in the game, and then partnering that with how the coach does
Right.
that, how the parent does that. Because realistically, what do we spend 2 hours, 3 hours at the yard, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
every other minute is outside of that, and we spend so
Right.
little time on that. But then, like, we'll talk about the mental, we'll talk about sports psychology, right? But it's
Yeah.
like all that's fine, all that's good, it needs to be talked about, but we don't actually practically do anything about it. And so
Right.
really what we've done is like develop this test and this system and this all these things to make like the mental side, the actuality side, the away from when you're trying to get better at baseball side tangible and
Right.
practical, because that's where I think people need help. That's just been my experience. Some people don't, right? Like some people don't like what I have
Right.
to say. Some people don't want to be around me. Some people don't want to listen, which I'm good with, right?
Right.
I just want to be good in my lane to the
Yeah.
people that resonate and that they can challenge me and I can challenge them. And so that's really where it came from, just that heart and wanting to do that. And so we're super excited. We're getting out and getting it with these organizations and talking to MLB organizations about it. And it's humbling for me, right?
Right.
When when you're talking to an assistant GM of a team that you've watched and play, rooted
Yep.
for all this stuff. And it's like,
Yep.
this is kind of weird, but I'm gonna act like nothing's
Right.
nothing's going on, right? Because as soon as you do that with billionaires and millionaires, then they start treating you different. So you gotta
Oh
you gotta
yeah,
act.
100%. Yeah. You gotta act normal
So
like
it's
you've been
like
there before.
that's right, that's
Yeah.
right. So yeah, it's been really fun, man. I'm really excited, and I feel really good about for the first time in probably my coaching and playing career too. I feel like I'm in the spot that I'm in my lane and I'm loving it, right?
Yeah.
And so like I think that's been really fun. It's been really fun to experience, and for me, it's something that's a secondary benefit is just all the relationships that I've gotten from it. And for me, I wouldn't even call it secondary; I call it primary. Like without this, me and you, I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't know you. I wouldn't like have all the stuff that
Right.
you've added to my life and all that stuff. I just so that's what's really cool to me. Part too, like it's a multifaceted, multicultural thing
Which
almost. So
just keeps growing. It just keeps growing. That's baseball, man. The most like I still say this to this day. Sure, I played in college. I did that. I knew I think coaches need three things. I think you need to understand mechanics. I think you need to understand tactics, and I think you need to understand psychology. Now, you can get all those three things from a book, from seminars, but what really differentiates those coaches and what level you're going to go to is the exponent, which is communicating. How well do you communicate it? And I remember when John was telling me about you, and I got to talk to you, and I got to do your test, and I'm like, this is it. So many people say coaches say the same thing, but they may say it differently. And I forget if it was from you, but I love this quote. If I'm the head guy and I have 500 people below me, and it's 30 players, assistants, field guys, and administrative, I need to know 500 languages. I need to know how each and every single one of those people talks, communicates, how they understand it, because you just need to be a better communicator. And I think with
hmm
Propel ID, you connect that bridge because you can't
hmm
fault someone for thinking, this is how I think, that's how they work. But it may
hmm
not be how the other person works. And with Propel ID,
hmm
you're like, okay, this is how you think, this is how this person thinks, here's how to connect the two. So it's
hmm
not, we're not improving like the coach's knowledge, they have the same knowledge baseline. You're just literally improving how good and how quality they can be by improving their communication. As soon
hmm
as I heard that and I ran through the test, I was like, that's it. That's the number.
I love it.
Take it.
I love
Take
it.
it. I want to buy stock. Take it. This is it. This is it.
I love
So
it.
how
I love it.
so I know you've actually had some communication. I know some teams here. I know the Rolling Tigers in Missouri have
hmm
even
hmm
taken the test. Have you had success or entertainment or an effect with any of the teams in the show?
hmm Yeah, so that's it. That's in process, right? So I have I have a really good friend who's one of the main hitting guys for the Atlanta Braves, and like just to be able to get his feedback about it, and have like certain people be like, hey, like, um, he's like, "Hey, can I show it to this person and kind of like confirm or deny what I've been thinking about this person?" And I'm sitting here going, "Well, what? Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely." So that's that's been
Yeah.
really cool just to see that. And so I've run it through some of my my lower level pro guys that I have or I've connected with, right? And just like I've got a guy that's with the Tigers, and so he brought it up through there, and they were like, "What is this? Is this ours?" And he was like, "No, it's not." And so it was actually funny because they were kind of like, I wouldn't say butthurt at all, but they kind of were like, well, "Why are you doing this?" He was like, "Well,
Yeah.
because it helps." And
Yeah.
so
It works.
it's been really cool just to see that, right? And I think like for me, it's funny. I was having this conversation with a buddy the other day, and like I had 3 or 4 pro guys reach out about training in the off season, and ended up telling them a couple of them no, and my buddy was like, "What are you doing? Like, why are you telling them
Right.
no?" Like, and I was like, "Look, like I'm not in it for that, right? I'm in it for those that high school, college
Yeah.
age group. That's
Yeah.
really what I'm here for." And I think like yeah, obviously like when things are it's cool to have those conversations with the guys that are getting paid to do something at their and they're at the
Right.
top of their game. And but what's really cool is like even in that conversation he was like, "Man, like I'd still love to do this." I was like, "Dude, I'm in on you. I'm just saying like I think there's a couple other people that will be better, and like realistically like I think it just makes more sense for both parties for it to be this, right?" But like then as we're having those conversations, they've taken Propel ID, they're going through the resources, they're going through the how to's. They're like, "Dude, like I need my coaches to have this." I'm like, "Yes, man, like yes," because like it's all about like really what it is like it's measuring decision making things within the brain, within the how you make the decision, the prefrontal
Mhm.
like cortex, and like all these different things where it's just like what fears do you have, what this do you have, what that do you have that affect how you do stuff, how you
Right.
communicate, how you seek out confrontation, because all of those things happen. And I think that's where like everybody talks about like breathe or have these techniques, and all those things aren't bad. I'm not saying that they're not bad, but they're band-aids,
Yeah.
right? They're good things to do if you can't escape the situation in the moment when
Mhm.
you have to do something. But realistically we want that the thing causing that in the moment to be gone, so you
Right.
can't necessarily do that in the moment in the game, right? But like it's one of those things where it's just super important for us to like I like, and we've talked about this, like I liken it's like a broken pipe, right? Instead of building, we have a pipe system that's here, right? If there's a broken piece of the pipe that's right here on my like right as part of the pipe system, we don't necessarily want to go around it.
Right.
We may have to in the moment, but eventually we want to remove the piece of pipe that's causing the leak or causing
Yeah.
the rot,
Fix it.
to
Yeah.
where now, yes, so now everything that flows through the pipe system, you don't have to worry about the leak. Instead of
Right.
like, "Oh, well, which glue do you use to do the leak?" It's like, no, get rid of the leak. Like, get rid
Right.
of the pipe. So you don't have to think about it anymore. And I think
Yeah.
like I've just seen, I've seen so much of like what I would call like I don't know, human depravity, and I don't mean that in a bad way,
Mhm.
but I've just sat across from so many people that are wrestling with things, or
Right.
I've had a lot of stuff happen to them, or they've done some stupid stuff, right? I used to work with addicts and
Yeah.
all this stuff, right? And you just like when you hear that very deep level stuff, it's like, man, like this is all very similar. We all kind of sound the same.
Right.
It's different, but once you understand that level of something, it's like, yeah, I completely understand that. And for me, like that's the special sauce. That's how I connect with. That's how any coach connects with a player on a different level. Like
Right.
I yell at my guys. I get on my guys. I have an incredibly high standard.
Mhm.
Like it is very high, and they know it. But the cool thing is that like I hold myself to that same standard, if not higher, realistically. And two, like it's because of the relationship that we have that I can demand more from them. Like I demand a
Right.
lot
Yeah.
from whether I've been at a high school coach or a college coach or run like it's high
Yeah.
because I know that that's what it takes. And but I can get on that. I can. It's like 'cause so many people think about this. It's like it's lovey dovey or it's this. It's like come and listen. It's not.
Right.
It's not at all. Like I've got a softball player. We yell at each other for an hour and a
Yeah.
half because that's I don't let her get away with stuff, and then she barks back, and we do this,
Yeah.
and like, but it's just it's not it's real is what it comes down to. It's
Right.
real. And like that real looks different for different people. She's like the female version of me
Yeah.
at 19 years old. So like that's why we fight. That's why we
Yeah.
yell at each other because we're the same. But I've got another softball girl that would never do that
Right.
ever, right? And so if I can know the differences, how I fabricate and put together the relationship
Yeah.
at the beginning changes, and that is the tone at which you set the tone at which you build the relationship with, just like with a house or anything else. That sets the environment for the rest of the house, the rest of
Right.
the relationship. And so it's like if I'm setting the tone of the relationship with, hey, like, tell me about this. How do you do this? How does this happen? When crap hits the fan, what do you do? Like what does it sound like? Like all these different things so I can actually try to understand what it's like to be inside their brain.
Right.
Because once I can understand that, then I'm telling you, like the swing, the mechanics, the tech, that's easy.
Yep.
It's not, but like it is. It's very
Yeah.
easy. Like, and it's so funny. Like I had a kid fly in last weekend, and he's just very smart kid, very intellectual, very
Yeah.
just can process very quickly. And you could tell when he first got, he said we hit for 3 days. When he first stayed there, he was slow. His signals being sent from his brain out were slower. His reactions were slower. All the stuff. By the end of that day, he was like making adjustments completely on his own, saying stuff out loud. No, I need to do this. I'm not even saying. I'm just throwing. That's it. I'm just throwing. I'm
Yeah.
just putting the ball in the machine. That's it. And he
Yeah.
got to this point, and his dad was like, I've never seen him like this. I was like, this is not magic, right?
Nope.
No magic show here. There's no magic show, right?
Right.
This is untanglement and empowering this kid to be like, hey, we're gonna do this, or hey, we're gonna have an F up round or a screw up round. We're gonna have this and just be comfortable. Because I
Right.
know how he thinks, I know how to tailor everything
Right.
that we do through that. And that to me is the cheat code. And I've seen it work in real life. It's like that's why I know it works
Right.
because I haven't just been in baseball and tried it on 3 people. I've done it in a corporation. I've done it in a startup. I've done it with addicts. I've done it with all these
Yeah.
different things. Like, and it works. And I didn't come up. I'm not some like I didn't come up with all this stuff like completely on my own, right? These like baseline big time techniques, like I've learned it and done it on myself hundreds of times. That's why it sounds like mine, right? But like,
Yeah.
it's like I'm surrounded by some of the smartest people I've ever met, and I
I,
feel very dumb
I think
when I'm
that's
around them.
very underappreciated is
Yeah,
not being the smartest person in the room.
I
I
agree.
think if it is such a privilege when you're around someone. So for instance, when I'm coaching and I'm using catchers, right? And I got into coaching because the only catching advice I ever got was in a primary stance. And he's like, you need to get your left knee out of the way. I was like, wait, what? Keep in mind, I'm at JUCO. I'm in college at this point. I was like,
Yeah,
what are you talking about? And
yeah.
he goes, yeah, you need to get out of the way. I'm like, how do I do that? He goes, I don't know. Figure it out. And I self-censored there. That's why there's a space. But yeah, and like that was it. So when I go to like catch, like you even mentioned some of the things that's going on in the brain. I can't even tell you how many times I have told athletes, and this is the first time they hear it, especially young dudes. It's okay to be angry. It's what you do when you're angry that counts. And understand that all anger comes from some fear. Rage is different,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
anger, and it's okay, right? How can you handle that? What does that mean? What is that energy? Does it make you better? Does it make you worse?
Hmm.
And you see this especially in blocking. It is not normal. And you caught it is not normal to block a baseball. You've been taught your entire life use your hands, right?
Get
And
out of the
then
way.
yeah, yeah, most people like block. Nope. Right? Like, I
Yeah.
no. And then I want you to be relaxed. And then I want you to catch it with your belly button. And then you got to keep your eyes open and be soft and breathe. And by the way, there's a bat swinging a foot in front of your face. Like, nothing about it's normal. So
That's right.
seeing these emotions, because in my opinion, I think this is why all catchers are a little cuckoo, a little crazy,
Uh-huh.
because
Uh-huh.
you take that survival mechanism, that get out of the way, and you break it. Now, and when it
That's right.
breaks, it's like, oh no, I'm good, whatever. I'm not gonna die, probably, you know. And
That's so good.
I think watching athletes who deal with that, because especially I see it, and again, I specialize with catchers.
Mhm.
Most people have played catch with their son in the front yard, and they say I'm playing catch. So when they see a catcher, it's like, why aren't you catching the ball? Well, all they've known is 12 miles an hour in the front yard, and it's a little
Yes.
bit different. And the problem is, like, I think in game time, you cannot make a pitcher pitch better. I think what he's there and it's his game. I think the most influence you can have is either being a calming, like I've had one of my best mound visits ever, but like I think you can have a calming presence and you can buy them time to try and
Mhm.
reset, redo the group, but you're not fixing mechanics. You're not fixing, like, what they have at that point is what they have. So who does the next person in line for responsibility fall to? And it's the catcher, right?
Mhm.
Once the pitcher throws the ball, his job's done. Maybe if a ball comes back to him, he's got to be a fielder. But if a pitcher spikes a curveball, pitcher's done. It's the catcher that has to take over. So then the blame goes to the catcher, because you can't make a pitcher throw better, so he obviously has to catch better. And then when you run into these things as a coach, and they may not even know they're doing it, they're just being competitive. But you're putting these pressures on these kids to perform better, but you're not giving them
Mhm.
the results.
Yes.
And where I want to say is, to go back to, you had mentioned the athlete, and you had this one kid that flew in, and he was
Mhm.
starting to self-diagnose and start figure it out. I learned athlete first at Fuel Factory, and it was
Mhm.
everything is, if you're hitting with me and you get the opportunity to go hit with Cam, go. And if it's a better fit, perfect. If he says something that
Mhm.
we've been trying to figure out and you click, great. Come back and tell
Mhm.
me what it was, but like,
For
go,
real.
like,
Yeah.
go. That's
Mm.
it. I'm like, as a coach, I'm a stepping stone. I'm just
Mhm.
part of your journey.
Mhm.
And my goal is that you don't need me. Like, I think there is a
Yes.
reason at the highest levels of our game, people don't get called coach. It's first name. I'm here to help you. It's advice. How can you, because I'm not going to be in the box with you when you're hitting. I'm not going to be next to
Mhm.
you telling you, hey, here's your timing, here's this when you're catching. How, as an
Yep.
athlete, can you become your own best coach? And then I wanted to ask you, because you played catcher and outfield.
Mhm.
Normally, when guys catch, they play corners. You went the complete opposite, far away from the plate as you could, to being right behind it, facing the other direction.
Mhm.
That's two very unique perspectives, from you're
Mhm.
in every single play of the game to you're 6'2", looking good in jeans out there,
Yeah.
checking out all the girls in the stands. How do you
That's facts.
how how do you think playing those two different positions helped you become a better coach, or mentally gave you a better perspective as a player that influenced you as to become the coach you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think like as with most people coming up, like everybody played shortstop and pitched and did all those things. And I was very fortunate that I have a tremendous dad and tremendous mom. And my dad really like tried to push learning as much as you could, watch the game, do this, like
Yeah.
and so like I think like and what's even more interesting add into that is I was also an umpire. So when I turned 14, I started umpiring like coach pitch games as
Why
well. And
why
so
do you want that
act
punishment?
so like when I was in high school, right, I was umpiring games on the weekend or on nights when I didn't have long practice. I was
Yeah.
umpiring during the week. And doing those things. And so like I think what it really did was like instead of looking at baseball as a positional or transactional thing, it almost like broadened the thing to the whole field. And I think as a catcher, you see that and know that. But I also would say like sometimes there was frustration. Well, it's like, why'd you play it that way in the outfield? Or why'd you do this? You got to come and do this.
Right.
You got to come do that, which is correct. But I think for me, it was more just like the outfield's like, it's so weird to like, it's such a weird feel. It's almost like being a punt returner,
Yeah.
right? Like you just have so much and you have, it seems so big, but then your reactions have to be so clean and so crisp. And I like when I work with outfitters, I've said before, like your first three steps have to be non-conscious. If you don't have a good first three steps, you're out. And I think like being able to tailor that with like, okay, like I'm teaching my players how to see the game. I'm teaching my hitters how to not just read the field, but read deeper, read more. And I think that really like, and I was, you couple that with like, and I was raised in a home where like we talked about stuff and like not just stuff, but like deep stuff. And there were times where it's like, hey, well, you're kind of being a dick, and like, so you're either being a dick just because you want to be a dick, or like there's something going on and there's something causing that, right? So it was just
Yeah.
kind of this thing that like fed one another and fed each other. And I really believe that that really just like led me to start questioning more of like, well, why? Why do I have to get my foot down? Why do I hit with a pro guy and he's the only thing he tells me for an hour is high T? Why? Why is that the case? Why is there not more? And like I think that some of those why questions have opened my eyes too much to certain things, right? And like um sometimes ignorance is bliss if we're being honest.
Yeah.
But like yeah, I just think that's where it started, right? And then for me it's just so much of a feel of like knowing how the relationship works between an infielder and outfielder, knowing how like all of those things should work. So now like when I'm coaching on the field, I could be like, hey, like remember, hey, he should make that throw, talking to a catcher, right? Because
Yeah.
I still love catching. Catching is my first and foremost when it comes to the field, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, but it's like, hey, like remember on that read, he's got to come and do this, and he's got to come and go here. And then we have that conversation. Then it leads to another really good, productive conversation. And I think if you can, we can teach young people how to do that, whether a young person's 12 or 32, right, or 24. If we can teach them how to have productive conversation that just aren't hands oriented or attitude or
Right.
chest hair oriented, right? Like then it really opens things up, right? Because I think
Right.
like it's like it goes back to what you said. Like we don't. I think catching teaches you how to funnel emotion so well, not just in the game, but so many different places. Like there's been so many times like where I would go out to the mound. I used to always catch this guy in high school that got drafted. He went and it was weirder back then. He was a first round talent, but he went sixth round because it didn't have the regulations of the draft and stuff like that. And like he would spike curveballs at like 86, and he would do it because he's working on something, right? His dad
Yeah.
was a pro guy, just throw it. And like there's so many times where he'd do it in the game and it just catch him like, man, I'm gonna kill you. Like if you bounce another ball, like I'm gonna physically murder you. And like I'm taking your money. Like it was like, but it taught you how to regulate that. And that's where I started learning myself, like,
Yeah.
hey, I can actually regulate this anger with questions. Hey, what are we doing?
Right.
What's going on? Right. And that first one's kind of aggressive, right? But like that's where I started to learn
Yeah.
that. And I think like then it's like it would position that with the outfield too, where it was like because I wouldn't say I was like super athletic, but I ran like a 6'7", like sub 6'7". I threw like 93 from the outfield. Like so
Yeah,
I could
figured out
move.
why you play the outfield. Yeah. And he's a hitting guy. Go figure. He fast, can throw hard. Yeah, crazy.
So I could move a little bit, right? But it's like it's cool because I had like catcher goggles in the outfield,
Yeah.
right? And so like that's kind of where like if I had anything that was that people looked at and thought was, hey, maybe we could do something with it. That's what it was, right? And so
Yeah.
like yeah, I just think there's so much too, like what you said. I love what you said about teaching people how to use anger, right? Like I
Yeah.
heard I was talking with one of my guys who has who was talking to somebody about just some stuff that he was going through, like on the baseball field, right? He essentially was hitting too many balls hard that people were catching. And, the person he was talking to is what I would call more of a theorist, right? A book
Mhm.
person. Well, this is what the book says to do, so let's do this. And like, so he gives me a quote. He goes, "Yeah, this person said like, you know, cowboy ranchers and cowboys like, there's just gonna be cow poop. So if it's part of your job, you might as well love it."
Yeah.
I was like, bro, that is the stupidest thing that I've ever heard in my life. No ranch hand, cowboy, anything I've ever met, and I'm around some.
Yeah.
Ain't none of them excited about picking up cow poop. Like
Oh
nobody.
god.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I was like, use that anger.
Yeah.
Use that anger at that person or not physically, right? But use it. And it's
Right.
so funny. Like I talked to him and then like I was helping coach like a national team. And like this kid who I love him. I've never loved an amateur
Oh,
more. I don't know if I've ever loved an amateur more than I love
yeah.
this kid. He's
Yeah.
special. But he has two really good bats. He makes two mistakes. I wouldn't even say they're mistakes. He just missed the ball and then he made a mental mistake because he allowed
Yeah.
the frustration to go, I would say, at himself, not at the game.
Right.
And he came in, threw his stuff on the ground. Just he's 15, man. Like he wasn't even 15, he was 14 at the time. And
Yeah.
and he just gets blah, 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 chewed on. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that changed it. You got it. That's right. Now he's never gonna do it again. I'm being very sarcastic.
Yeah.
And so so I walk over to him and put my arm around him and I'm like, dog, look, like it's not about ignoring the anger. Let the anger be there. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Use it, which is now like, hey, you listen here, you blah 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 blah. I'm gonna frick you. You take it and you take it
Right.
out on the game, right?
Yeah.
What I would call funnel it. You
Yeah.
move it and
Oh,
push it down this slide, not at yourself. So right now you're
right.
doing it at yourself. And what'd you do? You just made a stupid play and a
Right.
stupid throw, and you cost 3 runs. Yes, you did.
Yep.
Love you. That's why I'm telling you. But it's like now, and dude, he made a throw. So he's a catcher. He's 6'3", 215. He's 15 now, but he's insane. Back picks a ball in the left-hander batter's box on a right-hand hitter. The guy from second is stealing. He backhands the ball from this knee back here, throws the ball down there on the base, has the guy out. I didn't think he had a prayer. So I literally like it's one of those things that like it happens in your head. And you're like, ah,
Did I just see
wait
that?
wait a minute, like what was that? And like he came off just grinning, and I was like, he's like, I got that, and I was like,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yep.
exactly.
Yeah.
At the game, not at you. And I think there's
Right.
just so much to what you said there. So much to it.
Well, I think at every level, like most kids think when they express emotion, it's either a blow up or it's going to be received by a coach and they're going to get yelled at.
Mhm.
And they like the negative attention. The moment I tell kids it's okay if you're upset, I think most coaches, if not all, would rather see you pissed off that it didn't go your way than be like, I don't care. Because yeah. Because if you're angry, it means that you care, it means that you want it. So I'm okay
Mhm.
with that. And at every level, you get one. So if you pop up, because I don't know, hitting's kind of hard and stuff happens,
Facts.
and yeah, and you see guys pop up, and the first thing you see is them take a step out of the box, and their head goes down. There is some stuff that they're saying that you can't air on TV. Or when an infielder makes an error and he turns around and you see him put his glove over his face, he's getting his one, right? But the thing is, like, unlike football, you're gonna get another shot. Infielders, it may be the
Mhm.
next pitch. Hitters, it may be in 15 minutes. Um, and if it's not, that's the last day of the day. Guess what? You probably got a game tomorrow. Or if you're
Mhm.
playing tournaments, guess what? You got another game in 5 minutes. Like it's
Facts.
always the next. Yeah, right. So I'll see hitters that get upset, and I like to. And again, you're so much deeper in this. Like I'm deep in the catching side, but the hitting side's just like keep learning, keep learning. I like to give guys a job. So when they get to the plate, what's your job? And you start off with contact, singles, doubles, power guys, right? I bring up Pujols because St. Louis. Pujols was one of the 4 guys that hit 700 home runs. What do you think he classified himself as? And they're like, power guy. I'm like, doubles. They're like, what do you think
Mhm.
you are? And, we go back and forth. And you give him a job and it ends up being hitting the ball hard in the 90 degrees. I give him there. Where I dictate height is by their average exit velo. What's your power, right? Like,
Mhm.
if a
Mhm.
guy's hitting 65 miles an hour off the bat, we're not going to go to 25 degrees. Like, that's just probably not going to be successful, right?
For sure.
But
For sure.
yeah, so all of a sudden you give them a job and then they're upset about it, and it's like, right, but did you hit it hard? Yeah, it's not a home run. It's never going like if um or when you bring up the stat, I should do the math again just to make sure because it's been years since I've done it. But I'm pretty sure over the standard at bats a year, if you hit 40 home runs in the bigs, you're getting paid millions of dollars. Like you're a power guy, congrats. Like that's hard to do. But if all you do is hit those 40 home runs and you don't get any more hits, you're hitting 70.07. Like, I mean, you make Schwarber look good at this point, right? And sorry, Schwarber.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Right? So there's more to it. Like, you have to be a
Mhm.
hitter, and then there's at bats that you have hitting, and you have power and mistakes. And, like, if you look at what is a pitcher trying to do, and most pitchers, and now the game is obviously changing, but as a catcher, my goal for my pitcher is I want your worst swing.
Mhm.
If I get your worst swing or you make crappy contact, we're going to win in the long run. Yeah, you
Oh,
may
yeah.
get a duck fart here and there, but if I consistently get your worst swing, aka off tempo, off balance, we're going to win.
Mhm.
And if you ask guys like when they hit the ball hard, I actually, you know what? I'm curious what you think about this. I notice so many guys get result oriented. They can have a bad swing, but because they're strong for their age group, they still hit the ball hard. And I noticed that that gets accompanied by like, hey, if you get a base hit today, the dad will say like, I'll give you $10. If you hit a double, I'll give you 20, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And they get noticed about that and they get happy with just the result. And then in the game
Mhm.
time, if the result isn't what they wanted, keep in mind they could still be at first base. They are upset. They're upset
Mhm.
about that.
Mhm.
What do you think, and you can even divide this into age groups if you want, is the most common flaw throughout all the hitters that you see? Young hitters, like off the bat, the first thing that you see that they all have in common. What do you think that is?
Poor coaching. 100%. I would say swing based coaching that shows up in a swing.
Yeah.
I would say especially in this generation and even up to pro ball. I don't think it's a whole lot different to be
Yeah.
honest. Is it's very literal
Yeah.
instead of
Being a
both.
living thing.
Yes, that's such a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
That's such a
Yeah.
beautiful way to put it. And I think like metrics are great and they're important. Realistically, I'm not a huge metric guy. I'm more of a feel guy, eye guy. Um, what's going on? What's going on up here? Right? I'm the soft science guy,
Yeah.
but I use them to keep me accountable. So if a kid's scorching a ball, doing this, doing that, and the feel's not perfect, I will use that as okay. I'm going to give them a little bit longer. I'm going to
Right.
let them do something and I'm going to let them have 15 more in silence. Like whatever. So you have to use them. But I think like when you have kids, which is personal story, what I'm saying, when you have players that have an 0 for 3 game when they swung at 6 changeups in all 3 of the at bats and they finish and they say, I need a lesson. I need to work on changeups. No, you don't. No, you don't. You know what you need to work on? Stop freaking getting in counts where you're going to throw a changeup. Or you're
Yep.
going to throw a changeup. The end.
Yeah.
And I think that information has become a dime a dozen.
Right.
It used to be very, it used to be very much more valuable, right? Like an example would be like the Navajo Indians, right? They don't have a written language. I think they've actually started working on it in maybe the last 5 to 10 years, but everything was passed down orally, right? Which is dangerous in a sense too, right? Because some people put a spin on it, and you never know how they're going to present it. So you're always getting the language or the history from a perspective that's not completely unbiased. However, it matters more. So you listen more.
Right.
When there's a history of how we got here, or this is how you say this word, or this is how you say it in this situation, you listen because you don't have something to go back to.
Right.
It's that's all you have is that. And I think so. I think information has become cheap. And so like I think people have forgotten about how hard it is, not just to be a hitter, but to function. I think that like my 3-year-old, right? She's doesn't want to go to school. I know she hates it, right? Because like there's just some stuff. Not even hates it bad, but she just has some stuff, and I'm like, kid, like what is going on? Like, talk to me, right? And so like
Right.
then I look. We had a really good conversation, like all this stuff, but then I look and it's like the emotion regulation part of her brain is developing right now. So
Right.
like, shut up, dad. Get out of the way. Let her feel the stuff, right? But like, I think
Right.
that's where it's just like, well, I have enough information to get by, so like I do get by, and I
Right.
think that's part of it, right? And like, it's so funny, and I have this conversation because most clientele that can afford consistent lessons like all the time, like they've got some kind of a fluency, right? And I look at the dads, it's typically the dads, right? I look at the dads and say, hey, look, I'm a dude, you're a dude, I got kids, you got kids, I've been doing this a long time, you know what you're doing. In what world has your business ever flipped around in 6 weeks? In what world has 1 week done anything of real consequence to your business or your business unit that you oversee?
Right.
And the point I'm getting at is shut up and be patient. Shut up. Not to me. You can say whatever you want to me. I can take it. Leave the kid alone.
Right.
Like, say whatever you want to
Yeah.
me. Like, that's fine, right? I've been called everything in the book. Like, leave the
Right.
kid alone. Leave the kid alone. Because what you said something really important there. How we affirm is how the brain will seek out affirmation.
Yeah.
Right. So like I can't remember this lady's name. It's gonna kill me. But the CEO of Spanx,
Uh-huh.
right? She's the first self-made women billionaire. I think if I'm misquoted, I don't think I am, but I'm sorry.
She's
So
successful. Yeah.
she's very successful. And so like she said, and I'll never forget when I heard her say this, blew my mind. So it was her and a brother. And when they got to be a little bit older, every day they'd come home and their dad would say, what did you fail at today? And he made a point to when they would give an answer about that, he would ask so many questions. So he was affirming failing. What he was essentially doing, right, is affirming learning and growing and trying. And he said, she said, she was talking to her brother. She said, I almost felt like he was disappointed when we didn't fail at something during the day.
Whoa.
And like, imagine that. That's a complete shift of get a hit, do this, make me feel better because I have some insecurities about you and me, and I'm projecting it on you. Sorry, it is what it is. Love you, love your parents, love your adults. That's why I'm saying it, right? But like there's a shift. I almost felt like my dad was disappointed when I didn't fail at something that day. Like that is a complete and utter.
Yeah.
That's how affirmation was put in her brain.
Yeah.
Right? Affirmation is probably the most powerful drug or
Yeah.
force on the planet. And so we as coaches, we as parents, we as players, right? But especially on the adult side, how we affirm, and by affirm, I just mean you did this right, so you get this.
Mhm.
How we affirm will dictate almost everything. Think about it, right? You know so much about fitness, and you're quite literally. I'm pretty sure you could lift up the house that I live in right now, like easily, probably for like three sets of five. We're being honest,
Just because you
but
can
it's
doesn't
like,
mean you should.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I love it. So like, but like, if it's always a carrot thing of if I work out and if I eat this way, I get to have ice cream at the end of the day. It
Yeah.
doesn't work. It's cyclical. Now you stay on the hamster wheel as opposed to doesn't mean that you're not going to want it. All the things we've talked about are still there. But like how in that instance, how you affirm yourself builds everything up. How
I
if if they're results oriented, some people are just more result oriented. They just see that
Yeah,
stuff, right? So it's like affirm the process that
yeah,
the process gets them the result.
yeah,
But then with process people, they hide behind the process. That's just
yeah.
called what it is, right? Like, well, if I just do this, we'll be good. And it's like, oh no, hold on a minute. Your butt needs to be moving to something. Come on.
Right,
And so I
right.
think it's so much of it comes down to how we affirm, because how we affirm will dictate how the physical brain of that person will seek out affirmation going from there for the rest
I
of their
rem-
life.
I remember one of my favorite quotes is by John Wooden, and it says,
Mm,
"Doers make mistakes. If you're not making any mistakes, you're not doing anything."
mm,
Um, and especially, I love that quote. We talked about parents a little bit. I'll have parents that get on kids hitting wise, like, "Oh, why'd you do that?" Like they're outside the cage and they're saying stuff, and I'll love to use that quote, and I'll use that as a little tool, kind of like when you're being a base coach and you think the umpire missed a call. You're like, "Hey, that's why they give you three. Oh, now." Yeah,
awesome.
exactly, right? It works. It works. We're not pissing anybody off. It's a great thing. So I'll love to bring out that quote and I'll be like, "Hey, did your has your how many balls has your dad rolled over today?" Well, none, he's not hitting. Right. How many balls have I rolled over in our lesson? Well, none, you're not hitting. Right. Doers make mistakes. If you're
I
not
love that.
making mistakes, chances are you're not doing anything. And then you even tapped on the failure side. One of the breakthroughs with hitting and athletic achievement, because I got yelled at. Like in high school, I was young too. For varsity, I hit a ball over a batter's eye. I mean, nuked like a
Yeah.
launched, and it was a 2-run shot, and it put us in the playoffs. And I remember we were visiting. I remember first base side, bench erupts, ball's gone, round the bases. I come back in, my head guy goes, doesn't even shake my hand. He goes, "About damn time you did what I told you to. Now go sit down." And I got yelled
Yeah.
at. So I remember
Yeah.
when I was in Iowa, I had a coach going, "Why are you swinging like that?" Because I had a JUCO coach that I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
wanted me to sit all the way back, like sit over top my back leg and just
Hmm.
turn from there. No stride, no nothing. And I led the team. I actually tied with the kid that 3 times the amount of games I did. Uh, but in home runs. So with wood bats, I was hitting balls out.
Weird. Weird.
So, but just sitting and turning, and so I get to Iowa, and my guy goes, "There's a lot of explicit expletives in this story. I'm gonna mute him. I don't feel like editing all that out." But he goes,
That's
what the
fair.
F? What are you doing? What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm hitting." Why? And he goes, what is that?"
Hmm.
And he made me do a leg kick, and he goes, "You know what? This is your new motto for this season. F it." And he made me write it on my hat. And if he goes, "I don't care if you strike out 3 times. You better swing 9." You might this at a college level. You're like, "But you better swing as hard as you possibly can." And he goes, "I don't care if you fail." Well, next game I went 4 for 5 with 2 bombs. Like, just
Awesome.
it was free to go, and it was a leg kick and BP. I was putting him onto a football field. Like it was so
Mm,
just let it go. Like I don't care if you make a mistake. You're going to. It's hitting.
yeah.
It was so freedom to fail,
Mm,
and I would get on deck, and he would make me run the next day if I didn't do it. But I'd take my hat off, look at it, and just go, "F it," and then I could do whatever I wanted to. And
mm.
that freedom to fail, that being able to be like to make a mistake, to try and not have to guarantee success. There's so much. I think if you look at like in terms of computers, I think mechanics are the easy part of hitting, but I think that's the hardware. I think that's the GPU, the CPU, all that fun stuff.
Yes. Yes.
But the mental side is the software. It's the program running it, and or even if cars, mechanics are the engine, but your mind is the transmission. Like you could have
Hmm.
the best mechanics in the world, but if you can't figure out how to run it, it don't matter. It honestly
Hmm.
don't. And in my opinion,
Hmm.
mechanics are the easy part. The
I
timing
agree.
is that's a son of a.
You ain't kidding.
And then
Let's just make a point and say that is
yeah,
exactly freaking right
yeah,
there.
yeah. I try and I'm curious what you think about this. I believe mechanics because I tried to stay away from cookie cutter stuff, and the way I've done this is I think mechanics are to the individual because it's how do you move best? How do you move best, and how can we get adjustability after we figure out how you move best? And I think about where's the barrel in going into the zone, how quick, like from launch,
Mhm, mhm,
how's your timing, and how long can you stay through it? And if we get pretty decent with those three metrics, and then you're turning and it's super easy, like it should feel effortless, those are your mechanics. You're gonna grow. Like you're telling me that a kid that weighs 130 pounds and in 3 years, when all of a sudden he's a buck 80, he's gonna have the same exact thing? No, good,
not at all.
no, he's gonna be completely
Not at all.
different.
Yep.
But I think it's how does the individual move best? How does he process best? And once you do that, then it's all right. How many 102 fastballs have you seen? You know what the secret is to
That's
hitting
right.
an 86 mile an
Yes.
hour slider? Hit the fastball.
Yes. Yes, that's right. Don't hit the slider. That's the
Yeah.
secret.
Yeah. I remember
But
I
I
heard
think
that
uh,
I remember
no,
I heard
go.
that in
Oh,
high
go.
school. Was you know how to hit a curveball, and people are trying to do all these like they're thinking about it way too much, right? Like baseball's simple. How many philosophers do you know that played professional baseball? Baseball's pretty simple, right? That's the fun part. Yeah, because like honestly, in my opinion, some of the best hitters I've ever had the opportunity to talk to, what's in front of their nose? They're so present. It's so ball. It's so what's right in front of me. But so you have all these people just overthinking how to hit a curveball. The guy goes, "Shut up, hit the fastball." How many times do you practice hitting a fastball? When your coach is throwing batting practice to you, is he throwing you curveballs? Hit a fastball. It's so easy. Hit it.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. You're right, though. I mean, you're incredibly right, and I think like that's just such a great summary of what baseball should be, right? Yes,
Yeah.
the mechanics, yes, to this, but it has to go back to why are we talking about spin rate as a hitter? I don't care one iota what the spin rate is. Should I hit the fastball up or not?
Right.
And I love information. I love information. I love all of that stuff. It's so difficult, and I think that's probably the biggest thing that has been lost in this age is how actually unattainable in a lot of ways what we're trying to do as a catcher, as a hitter, as what is. Because man, like what we are doing has befuddled neuroscientists for so long. There are a lot of scientists, brain people, neuroscientists that study baseball.
Yeah.
They don't like baseball. They think it's boring.
Yeah.
They study it because it doesn't make sense that we could do some of the stuff that we can do. It doesn't make sense what I was talking about with that kid where he backhands and throws and all those things are fine. It doesn't make sense to them.
No.
They're like, we don't even actually like sports. We just want to stay behind a computer or watch
Right.
people. But man, what is it? What is it about this? And I think
Right.
that's what we always have to keep the main thing is, man, like this is difficult and this is very hard and it's almost never gonna look what the ideal situation is.
Right.
How many times I can probably count on my hands and feet how many times I got an A swing and then got an A result with the A
Right.
swing. And we have to remember that. We have to keep
Yeah.
that the main thing. And like that's why I think it's so valuable what you're doing, what you said, like just your perspective is that hit the ball hard. Yeah,
Yep.
if we could do this more, we could do this more. It's like, yeah, all that's true. However, like, did you hit the ball hard? Were you kind of
What?
on time? We're not actually going to be on time,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah. Well,
like,
I believe it was a sort of had this quote. He goes, "I don't need you perfect. I need you good."
mm,
So I ask a kid,
mm,
like, "All right, what would you rather be out of 10 ABs, right?" And you're young, so you're gonna mess up. We'll say you gave two ABs away, just whatever reason. Hot girl in the stands, you didn't sleep last night, whatever, right?
yeah,
You're gonna
yeah.
give up two. So, would you rather be perfect once out of 10 and hit a bomb like 450 dead, just launch a ball, or would you rather be good for 8 out of those 10 ABs? What do you think you're hitting? We know you hit the bomb. You're hitting 100. Or would you rather hit like if you had eight good ABs, what do you think your on base is? Every single time they're like 500, 600. I'm like, so what would you rather be? 500 or 600 hitter or a 100 hitter? Because chances are, if you have a good AB, there's a chance that ball can go out. And all of a sudden, you
Mhm.
realize, like, oh, I don't need to be perfect. I was like, if we needed you to be perfect, we'd be calling this golf. Like, it's not. It's
Literally,
baseball. We give you
literally.
90 degrees. Like, how can you be good? How can you give me a good swing
Mhm.
every single time? And all of a
Mhm.
sudden, when you back off that perfection, because I think perfection is a great goal, it's not a destination.
I agree.
Perfection is you're going to be extremely disappointed because guess what? We're not perfect as human beings. You can be great though, and you could
Mhm.
certainly be good. And
Mhm.
if you could be good for a long period of time, you're going to go somewhere. And it doesn't matter if that's baseball, or that's business, or that's family. Like, how can you be good every single at bat? Like, that's the goal because
Mhm.
the game of baseball is an unemotional game played by emotional players.
Mhm.
It changes. But think about this. If I have the starting freshman high school team out there on the field playing defense and you hit, how are you going to hit? Great. If I have top ranked D1 playing defense, how are you going to hit? If I have single A or rookie ball guys out there, how are you going to hit? If I have all the guys that are actively in the show out there, how are you going to hit? The ball fields stay the same. The players change. How can you as a player actively and consistently show up and give me your best? Which again, that's
Mhm.
another Wooden quote too. Um, your or he said it wasn't progress. It was oh oh I hate this. I say this quote all the time. Uh,
That's all right.
oh what is it? It's not competitive. Basically, like your best is you doing everything in your power that you possibly do to be success to be successful. That's success. Like, did you do everything? There's a lot that goes into that: eating, sleeping, mechanics, mental, all that good stuff. How can you be successful? And I think like if you've consistently gone up there, you have an idea, you have an approach, which I definitely want to ask you about,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden you're hitting, or like in catchers, how they set up for different pitchers and different angles and umpires and movements and hitters, you're going to be successful. The score will take care of itself because you can't control if I have, an 18-year-old from the Dominican up there throwing 97 versus an 18-year-old from Troy, Missouri, sitting 88. Those are two different animals, same game. How can you as a hitter
Mhm.
be successful with those? We're coming up on an hour now, and it's just I could talk to you all day. Um, what is your basic 101 approach that you suggest to hitters when they step up to the box? What is that
A gr
101 approach?
that's a great question. I think that I think the 101 would be for me, what I tell people is swing hard or not swing hard, hit the ball hard and win more pitches than the pitcher does. And I think that I think as you go to 201 and 301 and 401 and you do stuff like that, the finding cues, thoughts, different things that allow you to stay calm and stay I think approaches need to stay simple. And I think that your routine can be detailed. Your whatever can be detailed, it can have more juice to it. But like I think that cues, thoughts, why we train are we have them so it keeps the conscious brain occupied. If the conscious brain is occupied, the approach and the training and the 95% of the rest of the brain can show up. And so I think like the 101, the basic, this is how I can start is hey, like I would break it down questions. Was it a strike? Was I on time? Did I hit it hard, even if it was foul, even if it was straight back? And did I win more pitches than the pitcher? And if you can yes to all of those, it may not have been anything that you wanted, realistically. However, like if I can then go back to, well, I did 4 things right. That keeps me from tail spinning and it keeps my conscious brain a little occupied, which is what we want, right? Our conscious brain is what will send us down rabbit holes. And then like the conscious brain hits the fear and then this happens and then before we know it we're 72 stories down deep in the rabbit hole and we can't get out. Somebody's got to come down and get us.
Yeah. Oh,
But I
man.
think I think it's when you can keep it simple, it's like then you have something to blame in a sense, right? The brain wants to blame and shift responsibility when it can. So if you can say, was it a strike? Yes. Was I on time? No. Okay. Next at bat, I'm going to be on time. So I can hit the ball hard. So I can win more pitches. Right. And I think like when it's simple like that, that's something that people could take and do tonight, right? Or
Right.
tomorrow or whatever. And then I think like the goal is, right? Then we develop the 201, the 301 until we get down to the however deep it goes, right? The
Right.
4701 if we have to,
Yeah.
and understanding. But I think like if you can start there, right? Those questions,
Right.
then I think you can keep yourself calm and I think you then can actually think. Because the best hitters I've ever worked with, the best hitters I've ever seen or listened to or been around or anything, they the best way for me to surmise it is a story. Ronald Acuna hit a ball out last year. That was a changeup. That was one of the best biometric changeups of the entire year. He hit it like, I don't know, like 457 feet at 10,000 miles an hour, right?
Yeah.
And my buddy, he comes back in the dugout. Goes, Ronnie, how'd you hit that? What pitch was that? He goes, I don't know. I just swing.
Ball.
And so like not everybody has the gift of being
Right.
dumb like that, right? He's not dumb. He's not dumb at all. But like, I don't know. I just swing.
It was
And
there. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, man.
it was there.
He
But I
threw it in
think
my
like
nitro zone.
he goes, if it's this pitch is from the ground to my head, I swing, I go.
Yeah.
And like, but I think like not all of us can be completely that
Right.
simple that easily. But if we can
Yeah.
keep it simple and what our thoughts go to, and we train how our thoughts go to the simple,
Yeah.
we can't stay more simple. And
I
then,
honestly
like,
think there's something to that, man. I think simple means
Mhm.
consistency, and if you're consistent, you can make adjustments that actually act on and imply in stressful situations.
I agree.
There's I always ask people this one question, and I didn't preface this for you, so I
That's all right.
apologize.
It's good. No, we're good. Let's roll.
All right, you met a ball player, good person, good family. He wants to continue to get better. You only get to see him this one time. You'll never get to communicate with him again. He's going to move across the country. What is one piece of advice that you would give that player that you're never going to see again? And to give you time to think, I'll tell you what mine is for catchers. If
Okay.
I'm never going to see a catcher again, I'm going to tell him to sit in front of 100. One piece of advice, because velo exposes inefficiencies. And if you can catch 100, I'm not saying it's going to be fun. There's way better ways to do it. But if you can, you're probably doing something right. So what would be your one piece of advice that you would give to a hitter if you're never again?
I think it'd probably be a twofold piece of advice, but the first part would be, like you're good enough to be able to do this and you actually know more than you think you know. So stop looking for answers, external answers for internal problems and start creating internal solutions. And I think
Ooh, I like that.
because I think there's a difference between solving a problem and a solution,
Right.
right? Or looking for an answer or getting a fix and solving the solution, right? I used to tell my guys when I work with addicts, like, look, you can go from heroin to nicotine. There's not a whole lot of difference, honestly. One gives you scars and then one gives you cancer, right? There's not a whole lot of
Right.
difference. Or we could take the time it's going to take to get some solutions. So, like, you don't need to go from one to the other.
Right.
And so I think in the hitting world, it's very like high driven. It's very um, swing this, or I'm doing this now, or I'm doing that. And I think that sometimes you may need to have a get around your rear leg feel. Sometimes you may need to have a jump out to the pitcher's mound feel. Sometimes you may need to knob to the ball. Sometimes you may need to whatever.
Right.
But and the clearer that becomes, the more self belief that you will have. And if you believe, actually believe, when I say belief, it's not belief, it's belief down inside
Yeah.
of like, yeah, you're good, but I know that I'm in the right spot. That's it. There's not even an
Right.
argument, realistically. It doesn't have to be a like, let's pull our, crotches out and see who's bigger. It has nothing to do with that. It's just like, no, I'm in the right spot. I can do this. But I think like that lasts longer than thinking this way or processing this or processing that. It's like, hey, look, you know what's wrong. You may not know completely. It doesn't mean you don't need help, but you know. Push into
Right.
what you know. Don't push into what you don't, just what you don't know, right? So
Right.
maybe it would even be said like this, like you can only make your weaknesses so strong, but you can supercharge, you can like your strengths, you can put them on steroids if you'll do it. And
Yeah.
like, what do I do well? Well, I move really well when I do this, or my hands are really good. Cool. Funnel everything through that as much as you can. Yes, you may have an inefficiency. Look, pull up a swing, pull up a hitter right now. Me and you both can find five. That's getting paid. Put the best one on the planet. Put Otani up there. We can find something that's an inefficiency,
Yeah.
but it's okay. And so
Yeah.
like that removal of perfection or needing someone else to be successful. We all do, right? We all need help. We need
Right.
mentors, like all that stuff. But like, I think like there's people have way more inside of them than they realize, and they know way
Yeah.
more than they realize. And like, I think it starts there. Once that starts, and it builds out. And I think like, yeah, I can try this feel. Oh, I can do this. Oh, I can. Yeah, I'm fine. Let's because like I'm okay. I'm okay, right? And I think that's where even what
Yeah.
you're saying is like now I have courage. Yeah, put me on a hundo. I might break my thumb, but I'm gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
That's great. And then now it starts self-organizing from top down.
Yeah.
Now that's what we want, right? So I think that's what it would be is just like don't look for fixes, external
Yeah.
fixes, create internal solutions and like you have enough. Right?
Right.
You have enough to do this, like you can do it and find those strengths that make them supercharged. Make them supercharged.
One of the things I'll do with a hitter once usually at the end of a session when I've built trust and I know that I can get away with a little bit, they'll be struggling and they'll think, "Hey, I'm not good." Like if you're coming to see me, chances are we're not having the best time. Like if you're raking, you're probably not coming to talk to me.
Mhm.
Have him get in the box and I'll say, "Hey, do you know who the best hitter in Missouri is?" I'll say it just like that, like super confident. And they'll go, "No." And I'm like, "Well, he's right-handed. I mean, so are you. How do you think he gets in the box?" Show me. And they'll get in the box and you just see like
Mhm.
cockiness and swagger. And the first time they're like, "I feel out of place." I'm like, Do you really think the best hitter, like he's hitting 700 right now? Do you think that's how he gets in the box?" And then all of a sudden they'll get in. I mean, just like Big D, like just that huge energy ball. And I'm like, okay, I don't even know who the best hitter in Missouri is. Why'd you get in the box like that?
Mm.
And I'm
So
like,
good.
it's the same box, same at bat.
So good.
Think of early Bryce Harper. Think of early Juan Soto. Like how that energy, like they're doing that at 19. And if let's say the kid was 14, like in 5 years, you'd be there. Failure is for everyone in baseball except for one person, and that is a successful starting pitcher. Failure is the exception. It's not the rule. For everybody else, it's the rule. Like you're going to fail. It's part of it. Why not get in the
Mhm.
box like that? Why not get in the box? Like there's two totally different ways of saying, "Oh man, he's throwing 92. I got to be earlier." Like he's throwing 92. You're not going to blow it past me, but I know what he's going to throw. He's going to throw 92.
Well, what's
Like
that?
those.
What did it say? What did it say on your hat? F it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Like,
Let it fly.
let's go.
Let it eat. Yeah.
F it,
I
right? Like
yeah.
that's what it comes back to. It's like, hey, F it.
Yeah.
Like throw it at
Mhm,
me. Do this. F it. Let's
mhm.
go.
You gotta throw it over the plate. If you don't, I'll be over there waving at you. Yeah.
It's just
Uh,
we have to be so psychotic, man. We have to be so psychotic as hitters and thinkers, and we just have to. And if we're not, we're gonna struggle, right? Like we have to be able to take 3 swings and misses, and then
yeah.
the next, like, be like, oh yeah, oh, I got him. I just missed that
Yeah.
pitch. Like I'm gonna be fine. Like
Yep.
we have to be that psychotic. You know what I mean?
Yep. Uh-huh. Hitter's arrogance is real. It's a
It
real
has
thing.
have to. Like we think we're gonna beat a guy throwing 100 on elevation. Like we
Yeah.
have to be some kind of stupid.
Bro. Oh my god, bro. That's so crazy. Um, we are an hour and 10 minutes. Where can people find you? Where can people find Propel ID? Where can they go see you?
Yeah, man. So we do a lot on social media, probably mostly on Instagram. So that's where we do a lot. We put out a lot of content. I spend a lot of time making it, putting it together, trying to be helpful to all 3 groups of people. And so we put a lot out there that you can just have. I don't want anything for it. I put it out and I want you to have it, right? So we do a lot on Instagram. We have some stuff on YouTube. I'm actually getting ready to do some like an interview series too that we're going to put on YouTube, put some other places. And so yeah, I want to do that stuff. So we're going to have that, continuing to add value, just talking to players and hearing their perspectives. And then yeah, so we've got like a website where we run our some of our programs that we have, and then we're working on having a finishing up our app for Propel ID, and we're going to run everything through there. But right now, it's like hosted on our website, and so like, we'd love to chat with anybody about that. How it just could absolutely transform what you're doing and transform the relationships and communication and the failure and how they deal with the failure and all those things. So yeah, I've got a lot on there. I'm really excited about kind of what's ahead and the partnerships that we have, and just continuing to leave baseball better than we found it. And that's really kind of what the goal is, and making success tangible so it's not frustrating all the time. So that's kind of where we're at and what we're doing with all that stuff. And man, I'm beyond grateful for you and your time and just
Thank you.
trusting me to be on this. And yeah, man, just to have these kind of conversations just fill my heart up. And I know you're just doing so much for the game and doing so much where you see the issues are. And man, I'm just honored and privileged to be a part of that. So thanks for trusting me and all the stuff, man. We could probably sit here for 4 or 5 more hours if we're gonna be honest.
I hope we get the chance to do it again, man. I really love
I'm down,
talking to you.
dude. I'm down. You say when, I'm down.
Let's go. Thanks, Cam. Appreciate you, brother.